player Will.
Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. This is the quick and dirty on two of the newer units, Gilgamesh the Heavenly and Lucielle, who are impending coming to Global. They are in JP right now, so we know a little bit about them. Obviously, it's been a couple weeks for Gilgamesh, a little bit longer, but I do like to wait for a couple of these units to stack up before I do these preliminary character thoughts. This should be very high level. I've not done crazy deep dives on these units, but I know enough that in my gut, I have an idea of where they'll likely end up. And so today, the Gilgamesh stat overview again, just kind of getting an eyeball test here. Base stats and total stats are definitely in line with the 4th anniversary units. That much of we're kind of using as our new bar. He certainly meets it. He does tend to skew on the more crit rate oriented side. We'll talk about that in a second, but from a luck perspective, he's basically where they are in terms of the luck scaling equips for potential evasion. Even then, there's a new bar for what is considered evasion, so he's not an evasive unit. He's right in line with where all of them end up. The accuracy is really where he starts to fall a smidge behind from some of the units, but Cloud and Sephiroth aren't innately crazy accurate units either. He's kind of in that same build where he's got some decently strong accuracy. He's got some 100% hit chance in his kit, but there is some counterplay in terms of abusing that. He doesn't have any accuracy passive, so this might be one of the first units in a little while that does not really skew on the higher end of accuracy. Tifa, Kadaj, Ashen Kingmon all got these like accuracy nodes in their kit too. He did not, so this might be one of the first units that didn't get that kind of treatment, but still very strong stat-wise. His agility is still very, very competitive at the top end for what you can potentially achieve. He does have an agility passive that you will likely have on 100% of the time. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this jumping off spot, and I just wanted to circle back on that crit hit rate perspective that, I don't think it's crazy, crazy high, but his mastery ability does give him 20 crit damage, so they obviously are going for something here in terms of him getting that slightly above average damage output, where right now in the game, crit rates have kind of reverted to like a lower end of where they typically are used to, where we saw Strike meta like crazy high on the crit stats, and even some of the metas prior. But, in terms of the notable abilities, there's a lot to read here, but we'll just go through them very high level. The top two here are his buffs. His primary buff is the teammate buff. It's the second one here. That's the 7,500 HP physical barrier, AoE res, 25% AoE wide res. Love to see that one. The self buff here is really what makes Gilgamesh a step above, though. This gives himself courage. It gives himself 25% reduced physical damage. It also creates an aura around himself that will start giving follow-up attacks, and every time he lands an attack, he has Courage Seal on this, and not only does it land on his own attack, but it also lands on his follow-up attack, so he's got two ways to seal Courage, and his follow-up attack is actually an absorb HP, so this is a way for him to siphon back some HP throughout the fight as well. In terms of abilities, he's got one guaranteed hit here on a small diamond. That's a Spirit Pen ability. The big one, though, the noticeable ability for him is this giant diamond AoE. It's a 60% AoE crush, dispels shell. It's able to bypass Dario's magic aura because it technically removes the magic reduction buff. This also will dispel Joom's magic reduction buff. So this ability, very pertinent for how he wants to do his damage and what you can actually use to mitigate it. There's really not a ton, so excellent ability here. And the limit break is a kind of like a calculated rend AoE shape with that giant cross. It's the magic damage increase, it's the 100% hit chance, the second one here, and then it's a very high percent chance to inflict frostbite. So there's a lot to really like here from the offensive perspective. The follow-up attack is absolutely awesome. We've seen how valuable that can be. The fact that this absorbs HP is a super large cherry on top to accentuate his performance. And so I'm giving him an A+ currently. I think he's an absolutely meta tier unit. He's an excellent Sword Red Mage addition to the game, where that cast of characters has kind of faded over time. It's still a relatively well-rounded cast of characters, but they needed a little boost. He's absolutely that boost. He's got really great magic scaling damage. That diamond ability is clutch for just how much it's able to dispel and cleave through from a mitigation perspective. He's got that game-changing follow-up attack ability, the great HP barrier access. Not only does he have the physical one on the main, but he's also got a magic one on his sub job. So you have both or either or option. So really love that about him too. He's got a big time courage and card shield capability. Not only him, but also for his teammates. Obviously, any courage units around him will benefit greatly from this. And he's got great anti-physical effective HP. That 25% damage reduction is huge. His weapon also gives him another 15% when he's above 70% health, which with that kind of like heal back capability, he will be above 70% for a decent amount of the fight, so that's certainly still noteworthy. The barrier, the 25 AoE wide res, the 25 AoE res, overall he's going to feel really strong against this type, at least for much of the beginning of the fight. And he does have some interesting X factors. He's got 40 reaction block innately. That's much higher than what most units tend to get. The 15 debuff weakening, the 20 crit damage. He can't have his CT broken or down, decreased, and that's part of his passive ability. So against like Bridal Elia, who reduces CT, she literally can't do it to him because of that passive. That's really awesome to kind of have in there as a value add. And on his sub job, his main sub job ability, he's got a 210 modifier heal to an ally, and he'll use haste on himself while using that heal. He's a very high magic stat unit, so that actually is a pretty potent heal, I would think. And I love that little X factor to Guild Wars on second fights, that should you need to heal up a teammate, you have a character that can do that. So this is an excellent, very well-rounded unit. I love what they did. It's not without counterplay. Again, even against Sephiroth, he's going to struggle, but he is absolutely a top-of-the-line character. And now for Lucielle, very different perspective because she is a support, so these stats don't matter nearly as much to her getting her job done. There's a couple that I like to look for. Obviously, I like to look for a very high magic stat just to amplify the cure potential. I do look for a decent enough HP stat where you don't want a support that dies very quickly. She is not that kind of support. She does have some good innate bulk. Her luck stat, actually, I like a lot too because that directly correlates to their crit evasion rate. One of the things about supports is that you don't want them dying quickly, and how often they get critically hit is certainly a big part of that. From a evasion perspective, again, I wouldn't consider an evade unit, but she's right in line with where all these new units are coming out. It's obviously very good relative to older units, but I wouldn't consider her an evade angle, particularly as a lightning unit. There's really not a lot of support for that. The innate accuracy, again, this is a unit very much below accuracy, but she's not an offensive AI type of character, so this doesn't matter as much, but her main offensive ability is a 100% hit, so I'm totally comfortable with what they've done for the hit rates here. Even agility-wise, she's still near the top end of the game for what she has for agility. She does have the passive that will also greatly amplify her speed. This is a very strong starting spot for what I would expect out of a support. I'm very happy with this. When we look at the notable abilities, again, a lot to read here, but I'll try to break this down very simply. The limit break is really a game changer here. This is kind of similar to Shells, who grants courage to a teammate, but this is times 10. This not only grants re-raise to herself and an ally, but it grants herself and an ally the ability to seal enemy re-raise as well, and it's also 25% damage reduction for her and that teammate as well. All of those things are immense. It's amazing for a universal buff to give to any character that you put in the party with her. Her second one here is a select 2 that gives herself a 50% general barrier. It gives those two allies haste, and then it allows those units she buffs to dispel courage on hit, gives them water resistance, and then it gives them a heal back of 40% health. So this is kind of like Addison Rae in that she can give any unit she wants, 2 of them at a time, a heal back. The conjunction of both of these together is very strong for rainbow parties that all she needs to do is just help enable one unit, and we've seen a lot of units just need that little bit of push. She's definitely that push. The heal that she has here is a 210 mod. It's an increase of chain and elemental chain res of 30 for whoever gets healed, and it's a quick 10 AP restore as well. I love everything about what this heal has to offer as well, and her main offensive ability that we talked about is that 100% hit chance. It also has a chance to inflict disable, which I really think is a good X factor that no one's really hedging against that at the moment. There's so many status effects already flying around. On her main sub job, she does have a very potent heal as well that I want to mention. It's a 310 modifier heal. That's the highest in the game with Renoa. Very strong amount of healing that also restores CT to an ally. Absolutely love that extra healing capability here. And so my preliminary grade is an A. I think she's an excellent unit. I mean, very strong universal support just to what she can give for the heal back to any unit, for the re-raise and re-raise seal to any unit, the physical damage reduction to any unit. I love that right off the bat. just listing it out here. A great magic stat herself to support her heals with some good utility on her damaging abilities. The disables on one. She technically has a second offensive ability that, on a disabled unit, it's got a modifier increase, and it's also a 20% physical damage reduction to whoever she hits. So that second one is not her primary ability. I don't expect her to use it a ton, but she's got some good offensive support if the battle lines up correctly. So I like what they did there. The Supplicant sub-job does offer an ability that's a regen and 20% damage up to teammates. Now, I don't love this one as much as maybe some of the others, not nearly as much, and maybe a TMR is still a better third option for a buff, but this is still overall a really great solid buff to get some early damage up and to add some extra regen into the fold just to keep everyone at a topped off level, if you will. She does also have some very strong innate anti-chain potential where her main passive is 40 chain resistance. She will get another 30 if she puts herself in the healing ability, and her vision card also has 36, so you're talking over 100 chain resistance. That's abnormally high. It's very, very strong for her that against this greatsword team that we're seeing at the moment, all those slash chains that accumulate, this is going to vastly reduce the amount of extra damage she takes because of the chains. So that's a really strong, very current way for her to continue to stay alive. And she's got very versatile passive abilities. She's got one main one that you'll have on all the time, but she's got a magic res pen one, a spirit res pen one. She's got another one that extends buff duration by 1 turn, which very strong buffs here. A little extra duration certainly wouldn't hurt. So there's a lot to play with there. And so just some additional talking points for these units. For me, Sword Red Mage, to me, likely has the best vision cards in the game. It's super well-rounded for what they have. The units, though, were fading a bit quickly from the limelight. It's been a little while since we really had a good centerpiece to them. Gilgamesh is an exceptional addition, though, particularly from the ice element perspective, where Sword Red Mage, their strongest units are already ice and water, which has a great overlap synergy. So Gilgamesh is coming in perfectly down the middle to keep that job very relevant. And then for Lucielle, very timely support. Shallows was really the last support, and even before her, it'd been a long time since we had a support that really kind of came into the game and added some impact. I think Resnick, the old lightning one, might have been the most pertinent healer before that. But there's some things that work universally well with a multitude of teams, and units like Ashen Maw and Sephiroth and even Gilgamesh here will benefit greatly from what you can do to elevate them, where a support, all they have to do is really elevate a hypercarry unit, and we have enough of them currently that she absolutely does that, and she's a very valuable staff devout unit as well. The other thing too is that both of these are superb permanent pool additions. It's an angle we haven't really considered here, with obviously so much focus being on the collab the last couple weeks with the FF7 Advent Children, but they are both coming in with vision cards. Gilgamesh's vision card also comes with a very strong Esper that has AoE res penetration on it. So between adding these two units, between adding those two vision cards, between adding the Esper to the permanent pool of things, these are both greatly needed for kind of keeping the balance for newer players and for people that want to slow build a little easier over time, where you get your monthly login medals, you get your select shard tickets, and it's particularly for the lightning, because the lightning permanent pool sucks. I don't use derogatory, opinions quite frequently here on the channel, but it does. If you're looking at all the UR lightning units in the game and you were to say, hey, Will, I'm relatively new to War of the Visions, I like lightning as an element historically in all the games I play, what units do you recommend for me to try to chase and to build up over time? And you look at the UR units and you say, well, who's in the permanent pool? It's 6 of them, and they're all from year 1 and year 2. Even Bridal Elia is obviously faded very quickly here from the limelight. So adding Lucielle in that element, in that job type, is the first of, hopefully, a couple lightning units to bolster that permanent pool. So 2 big thumbs up from that perspective, absolutely. The ice permanent pool is in a little bit of a better spot, not necessarily by a ton, but certainly better than what lightning is. But those are my preliminary thoughts overall. Very excited for both these characters. Very excited for what they do to kind of change up the meta. It's not a complete meta shift, but it's certainly going to add in far more variation to the teams that you're seeing. It's going to add different needs for why you'll need Sephiroth all of a sudden, where right now it's not as competitive as it could be. And obviously sets the stage for even dealing with Joom in various ways, where Lucielle's introduction into the game actually has some really good upside against those fights against Joom. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll talk to y'all later.